Tish stealing Nathan and Nebs for herself. So I'm actually going to say Pix and Firen. I know we're always talking about Dom and Dimash, but Pix, he made it to Summit. He can definitely make it with Firen to the grand finals lobby. This is a player I know was very disappointed with his performance back at Summit. I literally spoke to him and reminded him he made it there, and he's definitely going to make it this weekend. But will he do it in the first game with a victory royale? We'll have to head to the casters to find out.
Thank you very much, Frankie. Look, I would like to apologize and correct myself because, you know, I was wrong. Frankie did get one game winner right. But in my defense, we don't listen to Frankie's predictions anyway. Well, all right, let's get on to that real action here. Of course, heat number 3. We got to be serious, Taco, now, because, you know, these are the last spots to fill out next weekend's grand final, and it's already looking like a very, very fun final, and I think a lot of the names in this heat will make major waves next weekend.
What really adds an interesting layer to this is knowing also that all of the teams competing today, they've had the past couple of days to also sort of reflect and review on some of the strategies that they saw going well, and then some of those strats that went a little bit less well. And obviously here today, the goal is going to be securing a victory royale because it's the surefire way to secure your spot on the battle bus here in Major 2 Grand Finals. So for right now, we got to find out what's happening here in Game 1.
All right, who will be our teams to make it through heat number 3? Of course, before we get to the endgame action, it's going to be all about these different off-spawn battles taking place all across the map. We have some fun ones in store, some surprise ones that we weren't quite expecting, Taco. But we will be doing our best to break all the action down. Shout out to Calasoto. I didn't realize Calasoto was still kicking it here. An OG EU competitor here. We got everybody showing up for the EU heats. Seti and Comeback, no problem so far.
Just trying to be first to the punch and do succeed in securing the Collider Corridor beta, but have to remember making it out of this drop is still potentially problematic, and things are picking up at Latte Landing. Teams already trying to establish who's going to be taking the first stroll. And right now for Benek, World of Hurt, just nothing really to work with. Has to be very accurate. That striker, I don't even know if they'll get the chance to try and get any shots off whatsoever. Sticking Rizmo just immediately giving a little bit of pursuit here. We've already got him so incredibly low. Don't want to let this opportunity drive by. In fact, it might get stolen away if they're not fast enough with it, because Seti's decided to make a debut off the distance.
Ooh.
I mean, that was, yeah, I was very surprised to see Seti sort of flying in there. And not only has he allowed Benek to get away, but he's actually gotten some free damage on the landing team now himself. So
nice.
A very nice sort of swoop in. And this is the benefit for Seti and Comeback now, that they don't have to worry about being off contested off spawn in this game. I was going to say, Taco, look, clearly just the aura of knowing that Cammy was coaching them was enough to just make the other team dip. Like, they were just like, nah, we just don't want any problems anymore if, you know, the great Cammy is involved. So we'll see whether or not Seti can continue, because he's, as far as we can see, you know, he doesn't have much support here. Comeback's in the distance and is quickly closing in. But they want to commit to this one. He sees a weakened opponent and he wants to capitalize and milk as much out of them as possible.
And not only that, but he might even be able to secure more than just the surge damage. If they can net a couple of eliminations, that would definitely make it much easier for their setup later on.
And now I wonder, as we wait to see how this concludes, where Chicho and Skivvy ended up landing. But nevertheless, Comeback and Seti in a much more favorable position than I think some people might have predicted it.
And for Chicho and SV too, the other side of that note is that I was hoping to see potentially that True Legs coaching versus the Cammy coaching, if that had been a potential, but other strategies clearly entering the mix here as Comeback Seti continue just applying steady pressure now towards Rizmo. Sneak, but two separate angles. Separate lines of sight. They're going to stay tucked away inside of the building for right now. It is their best bet. They know they can force at least one of the pair from Comeback and Seti to challenge them. Maybe they can get a little bit of leverage, if not find a shield crack, potentially even looking for that immediate knock. But this is a very delicate play right now for Rizmo and his duo. because a singular miss, that's all it would take for Combeck to try and just continue pressing the issue there.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think Combeck, SETI losing their patience a bit, not wanting to walk into a trap that they know is being set by Rizmo. And so it will be a disengage for the meantime. Gives them time to sort of loot up and wait for the opponents to make a couple more mistakes. But Chawa, though, on the other side of things, is going to be getting active. There is action taking place elsewhere. I think we're getting a glimpse of it here now as well.
For some of these teams, too, potentially even holding each other at bay. You can see some of the map bosses in the vicinity. Glubshi, Robin, close by. They might decide to get a little bit more up close and personal with Colder and Prusen, but until that takes place, they are just going to have to wait and see whether or not something more can develop here. You can see where things initially might have kicked off. In fact, it is Robin found himself a little bit more exposed than what he clearly anticipated. So a nice little ambush. That explains why Glubshi was actually just trailing a little bit more awkwardly off in the distance as opposed to engaging a little bit closer up. Let's see, this is it's part of the problem though, Lev, because you've got SETI Combeck. They've been stuck at Latte Landing clearly for far longer than they'd initially intended, and now they're trying to secure this engagement. But the problem is you're extending an invitation now for another third party to decide to intervene. And for Noodle and Kaysen, everyone clearly trying to prioritize their early surge, their early advantages. And Combeck and SETI aren't careful. If they don't secure this elimination fast enough, they might find themselves getting collapsed on. And just like that, Rizmo has been eliminated, but Noodle, Kaysen, still looking for a setup. Sneak not gonna go down just yet. Noodle missed initially, but still finds the cleanup. But that has given a heads up towards Combeck and SETI.
Yeah, and Combeck and SETI get exactly what they want out of that, right? The zone pool is favorable. It meant they had more time to play with. They're able to camp in, and even though the third party comes in, it just forces the issue for the other team. And so they get the damage they needed. They're able to make use of the map control that they have to head back, get whatever loot they're missing out on now, and continue to play out this game. Great off-spawn and early game strategy from them so far.
Based off of that quick stat too, we'll get an opportunity to see whether or not Nebs and Nathan can perhaps replicate that from what we saw of Thomas and Focus even. They secure their game one from similar heat, and now Nebs Nathan trying to do the same as Alba. Have to really lean into some of that solo prowess here up against the likes of Wolvex and Zarb. One elimination tells me that that might have been onto Alba's duo Xenox, which is a bit unfortunate for a game opener, but at the same time, this is really just the testing grounds, that first lobby, everyone getting the opportunity to really see how things are initially going to shake out.
Yeah, look, this isn't our first time commentating Alba in a heat stage, right? She obviously wants to make that first final, and she's come close in the past. It's about sort of piecing together the lessons of prior attempts to try and salvage something here that can sneak you through. It's a good heat for it.
You can definitely see Sky and Scroll's influence already, though, on Velo and Xynox with their initial strategies. And sure, it was a little bit of a haphazard day for Sky and Scroll yesterday, but that doesn't mean that Velo and Xynox couldn't have finalized the recipe for success here. But there is a lot on the line, Levin. Obviously, with both of these duos competing against their former ex-teammates in this same heat, there's obviously the pride contention of who's going to make it to finals, who's going to make it to finals first, potentially even, and also just knowing, I want to make it to my first grands.
Absolutely. That's what it's really about. Forget the grands. I just want to outplace my old duo partner and show that I was not the problem. Chap certainly isn't the problem in this fight right now. He picks up one, and he's looking for the other. The Siphon will give him a bit more room to dance about and try and find Robin. Of course, Robin isn't really working with much already off the back of the reboot. And so Chap and Flixie sitting in a very comfortable position here. A big testing ground, I think, for these two, right? In a heat that I think many people in EU are saying is the weakest. you would expect Chap and Flixie to roll on through. The problem is for them, Taco, is I think they've been in plenty of situations this year where we expected them to sort of roll on through pretty easily, and they haven't. And so what is the expectation for them today? Of course, it's to qualify. I think the question comes down to how they qualify. Is it a comfy qualification? Do they show us a sign of maybe what we can see next weekend, or do they scrape their way through and leave us wondering whether or not they are the right combination for each other?
Ready for them to break the mold. They've already got that Belgium lock, but now it's about finalizing the steps leading into it. And they have just had those hot and cold instances so many times in previous tournaments that it would be phenomenal if they could just bring it all together here and show that they are in ship shape. But for right now, problems continue to ensue. Deep outskirts of the northwest sides of the map. So many of these teams that were just looking for those reboot opportunities, given some early mishaps, and now finding themselves just still stuck in a world of trouble here as Column catching Art Skill bit off guard. Could be a dangerous spot to be in, but for Flixie and Chav, where they had initially had a pretty big advantage up against Robin and Glubshy playing for those reboots, now they've got to deal with yet another team trying to have a bit of an advantage here. But it's Chat and Flixie, and we're talking about, hey, we want to see those dominating moments. This is one of those circumstances where your veterans on EU should definitely be able to showcase their strengths, and in fact, they are going to do enough to prevent Zestful and his teammate from reconsidering re-engaging.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I'm about to say might almost sound hypocritical, because I did say I want a strong performance out of them today. But I almost don't want a one and done, because I want to see a couple more games of them. You know, I want to see what they're about today before they sit back and watch the rest of the games. And so, Ping and Ghost, another duo I think a lot of people will be wanting to see what they're about. Of course, Ping, a player who had plenty of success last year in trios with Manabuka and Wox. Ghost, a player who in 2026 has been highly touted as a top talent. And both, I think, have struggled to really find the right partnership, duo-wise, to find any sort of significant success. So an opportunity that has to be taken here today. Hey, our fan favorites on the screen. Everybody's favorite EU Fortnite pro, Mr. Savage with Truly. What are your expectations of them today, Taco?
I'm leaning very heavily towards consistency. That's the main thing that I think I want to see out of Truly and Savage, because when you are such a newly formed duo, it can be a bit complicated to get the exact practice that you'd be hoping for, but I know that these two have steadily been grinding. They've been joining inside of the scrim sessions. Truly has definitely been hawking down Savage to participate and practice with him, and I think that's just a great mishmash of what you need from a player like Truly, who's new and definitely excited and trying to get every last little bit of knowledge from Savage's experience also coming into the mix. And it can be really well played for a scenario, but I want to see them just making it to end games as a duo.
That's what we all want to see. Taco a believer. I'm sure we'll see many people spamming the cabbages to help Savage or whatever it is they do. Doing it for years. I still don't, I'm still not tapped in, but I know they do something for Savage.
Hellfire and Winter is an exciting duo, though, because this is, I think, a re-emergence for a player like Hellfire, and then Winter, not necessarily new to the EU competitive environment, but they have done relatively well at just consistently making it towards finals lobbies. But to hold that thought here, because Cruisin' Colder, seems like the action has definitely been building up pretty heavily for these two. 4 eliminations already, and that's not exactly something you would expect to see this early on, but when you have a team sitting now 418 above the damage threshold, they've been able to find consistent refreshes, and material management has certainly proven to be a problem for teams based on some of these past couple of days in the zones and the way they have pooled and some of the exposure. So for Cruisin' and Colder, having these solid box fights, especially because the likes of Chicha and Svi, those are the kinds of closeouts that you really need to build that confidence early on.
And that's not good for Comeback and Seti with Cheech and Scooby going down like that, because a poor game might just make them opt to revert to their original drop spot plans. But great defensive fighting there, showing how to deal with a team that's desperate for surge when they're knocking on your door.
Quick glimpse of where Nathan and Nebs were just at. A little bit of congestion now starting to pool towards that west side of the zone, but Battlewoods can be a tricky area to navigate. Really got to make sure that you are monitoring your builds around those trees, not finding yourself incapable of building next to one. But for Giras and Cheatin, right now it is exclusively a focus on trying to see if they can maintain just above that surge threshold, teeter-tottering the line. And Ifrozi and Chuck, it could be a good option here, but whenever you lose shield to that surge, you're having to spend a little bit of time to heal back those shields, because an overpeak could be the worst case scenario. And for Cheatin and Giras, they don't really have too many options. They've just got to keep trying to apply pressure.
Yeah, they need this damage, and so they'll play aggressive for it, but they have to worry about the surge. And then the rotation is not easy either. The good thing here is if they're able to get the damage what they have, they can sort of wrap towards the zone, but they're just going to be wrapping straight into the congestion, so it only gets harder for them. Not considering the fact that they ain't won the fight. They got to stay alive.
Like, saying that, we get us getting the exchange here. That Siphon just barely going to click in for both Giras and Chuck, but now both of these players left as solo, still having to try and figure out a way to even break past the congestion, because everybody that's already on that edge of zone is already looking directly at them, and Giras immediately suffering the repercussions of this drawn-out exchange because it took so long to get into zone. Chuck was hoping that sacrifice from Giras just ahead of him would mean that he could survive, but even after making it to edge of zone, just a little bit too much lobby focus, and eventually just being forced directly into the clutches of another player. It's an unfortunate circumstance, but sometimes that's just how it goes.
COOKED, cooked. Not much you can do. iDrop and Gonzo, we've not really talked about them. It's our first time seeing them in this game. I mean, look, I don't want to repeat the typical iDrop tropes, but I will because it's my job. And the reality is we've seen iDrop in great situations over the years in FNCS. We've seen him have great spells of form where he looks like he's about to mount a FNCS winning charge, and then at the final hurdle, it doesn't quite happen for him. He's playing with Gonzo now, who, as you can see here on your screens, knows how to hit a shot or two. And so these guys may go underrated, but the question will always be, when the pressure is at its highest, will they be able to deliver? This game will be a good test as they position to play height for the rest of the end game.
Gonna have to watch their backs too, because Nathan and Nebs just steadily creeping up towards them from that mid lane, secondary height position. Wouldn't be surprised to see them go for a clash eventually on the high ground. But for right now, it's a little bit more of a problematic venture if you're Ghost. This is a good chance to really try and lean pretty heavily into some of that soloing experience, but it can be difficult when you are dealing with fighting back and forth with that surge line. Only 10 above currently. Does have a good amount of materials and builds out, and we know that Ghost can get fraggy. It's just about finding the proper moment. And a lot of times players kind of just waiting to see if they can just catch someone on the move. First rotations can sometimes draw a little bit more attention than what you would want. Seti and Comeback, though, they're looking great currently. 858 above, 1 elimination. It seems that a little bit of an early scuffle definitely did them some huge favors, and being unconned.
A great example of just how a great start to your game can snowball into what could be the makings of a finals qualification game if they can really piece things together here. Nebs and Nathan have had a bit of a tougher time since The end game has begun. And they need to be careful not to run into a brick wall here.
Liking this, though, from Chap and Flixie. They seem to have found a little bit of rhythm with 5 eliminations. Just doing a great job at tarping underneath height. Savage, truly, also trying to gauge. They want to be some of the first on the go, but Levin, just looking at their loadouts, they are going to need a refresh eventually. They are running incredibly low on materials. And for iDrop and Gonzo, it's still just fixation, front side, holding the high ground. Nathan Nebs continue to just kind of terrorize these mid layers, but also doing a great job of making sure to stay on top of prioritizing that front side control.
Yeah, and look, a bit of a rough end to the rotation there for Nathan, but I love the intention, investing the materials to find them the refresh that they needed to find just a bit of control in this game.
And this is a really scrap spot right now for Truly, but we'll have a chance to see how far his wings can take him. As a solo, many players know even making it as a duo in from the backside of zone can be a complicated measure. As Nathan turns around one more time, Alba will be eliminated. 4 eliminations now for some of UK's finest. They don't look like they want to stick around in this lobby. Seem like they want to just get the job done on the first go round. Is Truly now looking for a closeout, but can't get the refresh he needs. That'll be the end of the run here in game 1. But Nebs has been taken out. Flixie also trying to see whether or not he can go even on this exchange. Unfortunately, losing Chap, priority fragger, is going to put a lot of pressure on, and Nathan and Nebs shut down that tango. Chap and Flixie, just big cost.
Yeah, a lot of our top hitters there losing steam, but you know who's not so far? It's iDrop and Gonzo up top. That time will come soon though, and we'll see how they'll deal with it. It's not going to be easy because when you've got Flixie feeling it down below like he is, anybody that runs into his path might just be running into the end of their game. We'll find some more space towards the front of the zone as Combat tries to creep his way in on the back with the chug. Flixie doesn't have as many more materials to invest into his position here, so just gonna have to try and heal and find a shot to hit, and a shot he will find. Can he get the loot with the player in the box? He's gonna have to duck down. Flixie still manages to stay in this game and just catch up a bit more placement. If he can, will eventually get dropped out by Combat, who finally made his way in. And still nobody contesting iDrop and Gonzo, and they have completely run out of steam up with the builds.
You have to wonder now what's been taking place, who's been waiting to try and steal this one away. Wolvax opted to see whether or not they could take a stab towards height, but iDrop will be forced to drop chopped out, doesn't get the chance to heal. Fall damage will be the final calling card here, but Gonzo still up and running, has plenty of whites to play things out. Ghost has done an excellent job also as a solo, but the Storm will finally take him out. Velo and Zynox playing through the low ground layers, only having to contend with Combat essentially on height, and Combat with no builds. They'll be forced to drop down directly towards where Velo and Synox are at, and they'll immediately find that elimination, no problem whatsoever. But the question is, can they connect with the last one? It's a 2 versus 1 endeavor. They've just got to make sure to close it out, and Gonzo won't be able to nail it. So congratulations, Velo and Zynox. This is a perfect opportunity to showcase exactly why you guys opted to play together in the first place.
Look, one thing I know for sure is that when it comes to predicting a Welsh player, you can never doubt Mini Miner. We're going to send it back to Frankie in the desk to break that one down.
Thank you so much. I feel like we've been talking a lot about Spanish Fortnite recently, probably because of Takata being on the desk, but we got to talk about British Fortnite now, Mini Miner. Congratulations to Velo and Zynox. You know, these guys, they rebuilt things together, and now they're going to the grand finals together.
I want to talk about Welsh Fortnite, actually. We are a different breed. That's what we do, right? Yeah, no, unbelievable stuff. I'm honestly a bit of I can't lie, yeah, I'm a bit of a fraud, though, I'll be honest. I did say that they wouldn't win a game, so it looks as though they've proved me completely wrong. And I thought they'd be playing a lot more consistently, not getting as many eliminations, not getting as fraggy based on that div cut performance. But Takata, the way they played this endgame was absolutely fantastic. Electric at times there as well. I think it was, what, 6 eliminations for the win. And they'll be really, really happy with it just in this first game here. Really great start.
Oh yeah, no, the chemistry all-time high. They were the only duo for a while there in those final moments when iDrop went down and the issue is they kind of had to play that heal off a little too early, so once they came back they were already low on mats, and then with Levin switching up on his kind of desk trash talk instantly and celebrating Mini, you know, everything is just a surprise here in Heat 3.
I do wonder if Velo learned a thing or two being on land at Summit with Mr. Savage, who's regarded as one of the greatest IGLs that Europe's ever produced. But I also don't want to take anything away from Velo because we're on this journey with him now, and we'll see him and Zynox in the grand finals, and we'll see you guys after the break. What an opening game of Heat number 3. Congratulations to Xenox and Zynox, I should say, apologies, and to Velo for making their first ever FNCS Grand Finals. Because if you remember, Velo and Savage made Summit through the last chance lobby. So it's going to be a big grand debut for them next weekend. Doing it for Britain and more specifically for Wales, Mini-Minder. But let's take a look at the leaderboard and find out where things stand after that first game. Because if you cast your minds back to that end game, most of the time the high ground was held by iDrop and Gonzo. They took it early. No one seemed to hold them off. At points like iDrop's beaming any challenges out of the sky, but then he got beamed right back. Gonzo ending up in that solo situation to Carter. But he played it so well in order to clutch so far.
Yeah, it looked like they had full control throughout basically every moving zone. Nobody was able to take height for them until those final moments where iDrop, I believe, actually went down. You can see here they were taking shots, but after that knockdown, iDrop did end up falling, going down to fall damage, and this is where Gonzo was in a tough decision. He had to force the heal off a little too early without time to fully win it out. So once he came back in, it was already a 1 versus 2. Odds were not in his favor, and despite running out of materials, he went down in second. But that's still a good match, Mini. That's a great way to start the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I really do not mind that at all from those guys. The way they took height, the way they held height was really good as well. It didn't seem like they were contested throughout the entire end game right up until the end, which is sort of where it all fall apart. But really nice game from them. Expect to see them in more end games as well, given the experience of iDrop.
Definitely. It's a great start for these guys, and it's also a fantastic start for Chap and Flixie. Flixie found himself solo towards the end of the end game, managed to take 7th place with 4 eliminations, and we expect big eliminations from these guys, Mini Miner.
Yeah, it's funny because we actually didn't speak about these guys at the beginning of the show yet. They are the only team in the lobby that have already actually qualified through to the Global Championships. And when we speak about teams that have already qualified through, we talk about them in the context of just having that freedom, that ability just to W key a little bit, try and play height, trying to go for a little bit of some crazy plays like we've seen in some of the other heats. But these guys played it a little bit more calm, played those mid-ground layers, didn't try and play height. But these are 2 fantastic fraggers, Takata. They were doing so very well on those mid-ground layers. And even what I really like to see, those little 3 edits coming through as well, showing that they're really playing with confidence right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd call it calm because they were non-stop looking for refreshes and eliminations, and you know, in the end it got the best of them, but they picked up 6 along the way. Decent placement. I mean, it's more than enough to kick things off.
Well, let's take a look at the top of consistency right now, and that's Alvin and Rise. This is a Polish duo. There's a few notable Polish players in the lobby tonight. These are players we don't typically talk about, Mini Miner.
Yeah, not players that we've necessarily seen at this level. We've seen Alvin at 1 FNTS final in his history, but it's nice to see some newer names in of course Crix that's qualifying through here, or having a very good game here, looking to qualify through. Excited to see more from this team though. It's one of those teams that we don't necessarily know too much about because they're, you know, a newer team to the lobby, but what I'm excited to see is just whether they can continue these end games. The theme that often with sort of newer teams, especially teams that we don't get to see at major final level, is whether they can continue having that consistency, or whether that first game decent performance will sort of get to them and they'll get ahead of themselves, which hopefully that won't be the case.
Well, they're looking at page 2 right now, and don't forget that the standings, what you're looking at is going to change. So at the end of the day, we'll be looking at the top 15 because the top 5 will be taken by the Victory Royale winners. Right now, it's the top 11 for contention. So currently in the middle of the pack of page 2, we've got Savage and Truly. I mean, we've got 4 more games to go to Carter. It's not a bad start getting 15th, but, you know, we know we can see more from these guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's all right. You know, it's all right. The good news is they didn't have too much off-spawn trouble from what we saw, I believe. So as long as they're able to consistently make it to the late game, you know, I trust in the ability of Savage and Truly to consistently play this one out. They could add a better match, but you can't complain either. It's 5 matches to be played out, so hopefully they can make it happen.
Got to hurt a little bit though. It's got to hurt a little bit for Mr. Savage and Truly, because both of their ex-teammates have now won the very first game. Of course, Velo with Mr. Savage qualified through already, and Truly, of course, with Zynox. It's like, hang on a sec, did we choose the wrong teammate? Should we have stuck with who we played with previously? So interested to see how they pick themselves up after that. Hopefully it won't affect them too much, but just something to keep in the back of the mind.
Well, interesting to see so many new duos tonight, and we talked about Seti and Comeback at the top of the show. Seti went away from Poland to team up with Rax at the start of the year, but now he's gone back to his Polish roots. He's playing with Comeback. It's surprising we haven't seen Seti play with many other Polish players because he played with Cami for so long. But right now, this is a great start for these guys, Mini Miner.
Fantastic start for these guys. As it happened, they're uncontested at that Cami split as of right now. So everything that I spoke about at the beginning of this show, just ignore that for that very first game. It didn't happen, but hopefully, or maybe for them, they might be contested later on down the line. But if they can continue to be uncontested, they should be able to make these end games really well. And in particular, Takata, Comeback doing such a great job solo clutching for so long there. Seti went down a lot earlier in that end game, and of course, that's what you need, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I basically have no doubt they'll be able to qualify if they stay uncontested. But as you mentioned, Minnie, we did a whole breakdown on it, and it's a very big possibility that, especially if the other team, you know, has some trouble where they're currently dropping, or I don't even know where they're dropping now, it's likely that they might go back.
Do you think then that if Chicho and Ski do go back there, are they going to feel refreshed and like ready to rumble? Do you think that Seti is going to be reconsidering his position at the drop spot very quickly?
We'll see. I just think the fact that Chicho and Skavi didn't have a very good game there, they might now go back, so we might see that fight go down.
Well, let's see if it's going to happen, because we're ready to head into game 2 with Levin and Taco.
Thank you very much, Frankie. I'm excited. Now, if this is what this heat has to offer Taco, maybe people were sleeping on this one because that was a fun first game.
No, without a doubt. I mean, I would be very surprised if tons of people would have nailed Velo and Zynox as our game 1 winners. In fact, would even wager that most people were kind of hoping on the downfall in this sort of circumstance. And now it's all about all eyes on Savage and Truly. So let's see what happens next here in game 2.
Taco, you are 100%, I can't speak English, 100% correct in saying that the pressure is now on for Mr. Savage. We can't let Velo qualify through and Savage is struggling here. We just gotta go through, win game number 2, show him, look, anything you can do, I can do better. They gotta double their lenses on and everything. You just gotta outshine them in this game. The pressure's on.
We would never hear the end of it. We already are never going to hear the end of this. I can assure you that much, just knowing the kind of character that Velo can be. But hey, enjoy the celebration, because Major 2 Grand Finals is up next, and that's exactly what all of these players are still contending for. Swyver, Very, trying to establish a little bit of dominance here at Sinister Strip. Izik's gonna make it into the vault tunnels, but whether or not they'll be able to escape, to potentially wait and see. The double Maven loadout there for Wyvern, and eventually drop one of them. Doesn't have delayed pull-out time, but still, both of these players just trying to hunt down that final elimination. They don't want to have to worry about constantly having to check their backs. It's just so much paranoia. Izik's still barely managing to sneak away. Survivability is all it takes sometimes. And Wyvern Very have spent a decent amount of time in pursuit here, but the moment that they've chased the player out of the POI entirely, that might be all it takes for them to recognize that it's time to just get our loot path established and really start building on our own game plan. Checking in elsewhere though. Frosted Flats with Velo and Zynox having had game 1 success, now up for grabs, and 2 separate parties have decided they want to take a gander towards it. Noah and Aruya still waiting to see whether or not they can get the upper hand. But one more time, the longer it takes for these fights to conclude, the easier it becomes for another party to intervene. And especially when the entirety of the lobby knows that there is no truly established duo at this POI, just makes it all the more susceptible for some further sneaky action.
Yeah, but that's what these Oswalds often are about, right? I think we often, throughout these heats in EU and on NA, if you've been watching over there as well, you just get these fights at spots where a bunch of different teams start to get involved, and it sort of builds and develops on itself game after game. And oftentimes, Taco, you can't even identify who's the winner coming out of it. It's just a mess. Ooh.
A bit messy.
So, let me get this straight. Cammy decides, I'm gonna coach my good friends Seti and Comeback, and I'm just gonna turn them into Prime Pete and Poyo. We're just running it down. That is the strategy. Early game, we land and we just run it down on whoever lands nearby. I like it. I'm loving it.
Get back to that in a moment here. First, Wolvax and Zarb. Just trying to be quick about it. No real time to waste. Seeing whether or not they can take out Skos and Vegeta. A couple of last-minute entries into today's competition, but here nonetheless. And they are still trying to wager whether or not they'll even be able to establish a little bit of footing here. Seems as though fight's gonna fizzle out a bit, though. Twek and Mitro. This could be a bit of a devious ambush for anybody that might have taken notice of it. Nico and Melabuka at one point even fell victim to this sort of trap, and it looks like Mitro and Twek just stolen a page out of that playbook, because they're going to be able to net at least one elimination off of the
so
patience.
fucking evil.
Sitting inside of the cone, waiting next to the vending machines over towards Lifty Lodge. So their time wasn't wasted in the end.
What do we have here? Hellfire and Winter. You know, these two obviously have a fair share of experience, especially in the case of Hellfire. And of course, Danish players, so I'm only going to say nice things with the production team listing right now. But two players that, again, I think probably go under the radar in terms of their ability to do this, right? Give pressure in these types of fights here in the Storm where Jewel just wasn't expecting them whatsoever. Look, you can see here, he's able to just lurk his way on in. Tidy. Gotta be on your feet, son. Gotta be on your toes, head on a swivel. Can't be getting caught out like that. And the great thing about Hellfire is, again, he has that experience to know we can just take that and leave. We don't have to force the issue. That damage will be more than fine for the next couple of zones as we loot up.
It's part of the problems involved, right? With when you've already taken out one member of a duo, you get a little bit too tunnel visioned on trying to find the other. And that's the reason why Hellfire and Winter were able to really take advantage. Still, Chat Flixie, Golden Grove has seemingly worked out for them, but checking in with what Savage and Truly have been getting up to over towards Shanked Sanctuary. And this will be a bit of a struggle moving forward, largely just because they've got
the one house.
Velo and Zynox Victor Royale sort of looming over their heads here, but for Hellfire and Winter, they just want to see whether or not they can actually take out Jewel too. They already took out Tidy earlier on from a well-played sneak engagement. Doing a pretty solid job too at just ISOing. Yeah. Jewel just doesn't have an escape route. Just a really great job at preventing the escape.
Finish the job. And again, that's why they didn't have to force the issue earlier, right? These things comes in swings and roundabouts. iDrop and Gonzo, not the worst first game, right? If they can have another game like that first game, they'd be almost good to quell based off of the points in previous rounds. But I think they're going to want more than that, especially if they continue to be as aggressive towards playing height as they were in that first game.
Especially for someone like iDrop too. Oof. Sneak nearly managing to turn that in his favor. Jello and Sleep, they needed that break though. Got plenty of whites to heal through coming out of Latte Landing, but the surge could potentially be a little bit of an issue as the match continues to develop, just knowing that, you know, it's great to find those eliminations, but less so when you are eating big damage in the process. For Chicho and Skvi, maybe they've been hoping that Comeback and Seti would have been the victors in that first lobby. Part of the reason for them potentially trying to avoid that all spawn early on is to see whether or not they can revisit their original intentions and try to replicate some of that success.
Colden cruising back here towards Frosted Flats, which we've seen obviously be incredibly messy already, and that will continue here as he looks to try and take control of the wall, can't quite grab it. So the war of attrition will still just continue here as they try and claim as much space as they can, re-farming and all.
Almost like they're sizing each other up.
Yeah, I think, you know, many people who have played scrims of any kind or tournaments of any kind, you'll be familiar with these types of situations, you know, especially when you're playing like zonal scrims and like you're not allowed to actually fight yet, where you got a team right next to you just trying to take all the builds and the pieces near you, and you're like, what are you guys doing? Like, do you guys want to fight? We're not supposed to fight, but if you guys want to fight, we're ready to fight. That's the type of energy I'm getting from that interaction. And usually in these situations, they don't fight. They just annoy each other until it's time to rotate. So, Wolvax and Zarb in game one, tackle. We saw them trying to make plays, right? They went up for height when iDrop and Gonzo started to look a bit weaker. And I think that's exactly the type of role this duo is going to be playing in this lobby. They're going to be the disruptors. They're going to be the team that comes out of nowhere and makes a play that makes you go, oh, wait, they might just steal this game. Game one was a nice first attempt and a decent glimpse into what these two have to offer.
And that's the thing, you always have to expect somebody to meddle in your business, especially when it comes to trying to hold the high ground. But Zarb and Wolvax aren't the only duo who's likely got intentions of heading for height as those moving zones really start to build up. Because Flixie and Chap, we were asking for, we wanted to see, you know, some signs of life from this duo, those strength capabilities, and they're definitely doing a decent job at handling work in the mid ground, lobby one, but it's the repeats that really have to continue to accrue here before there's any sort of full convincings of what they truly have in store here today. Alvin and Brutus faced up over a supply drop now, really just trying to scope out the area. Only 32 above, so it makes perfect sense now why they've tried to utilize a little bit of height. They're going to need to start applying some pressure somewhere, probably hoping that a separate box fight might break out that they could get some tags in on. Maybe even scouted out the fact that Alba Xenox a little bit held by Chuck and Ifrozi. But it'll be tough to come by any sort of freebies. Lots of players just doing their best to try and close off those angles.
Yeah, and those two are looking to try and continue the wonders of that first game. And the third best surge last game as well. So it's not like they don't know how to do it. It's just about repeating over the next couple of games. Nathan and Nebs. We saw them sort of run into a bit of trouble towards the start of the last end game, but I think what was so inspiring about Nathan and Nebs, and one reason to, I think, keep backing them is how they were able to recover from that situation, right? They got a good refresh. Nathan made some great rotations that just put them again in a better spot. And I think when you have a team that understands how to recover in these types of games, they're always going to be a valuable asset.
You know, you're on the topic of recovering, and that's something where newcomers to the set lobby experience can have a little bit more issue with trying to identify Vegeta, just seeing whether or not he can successfully out-heal Storm Ticks, but even then, you can't heal Shield and your Whites at the same time. Cheatin and Giras just taking advantage of the situation entirely. They knew that Solo was definitely struggling.
Did he have a build? So, I mean, I get you know, you're just struggling, you're desperate to try to just get the heal off, but you also just can't breathe there, you know? You have the build, you gotta place the wall.
Just don't think he expected them to be there.
Expect the unexpected in this one, I'll tell you that much. Tom, just about getting in, not with much, but just about. He'll be hoping he can get one of them big pots chucked his way soon. He's found one for himself, not bad. Another one will do though.
But again, just so many players barely managing to hover just above that surge threshold. And then not only that, but when you've got other competitors just desperate to try and get their surge damage online so that they stop taking damage from those ticks, just a lot of layers that can really complicate things here. But for Ping and Ghost, this is a clear coast. Could not ask for a better opportunity than the one that Coach just created. They were already looking good on Surge, but the elimination points to boot, just nice to have.
I don't think we've seen anyone using this pistol. You would remember and correct me if I'm wrong, but
I do know that
Almost no one.
Nico was having some fun with it during.
oh, in that one game. This is a problem. This is the problem. Can't even remember anything. It was just so quick. Blinking,
It's not necessarily a hot commodity. It's the best way to put it. But I can't fault players given pistols and stingers in comparison. But it does have its moments for sure from the big shot pistol.
Great for being in that surge base, right? And using it exactly how Ping was using it. So, Alvin, see, this is a bad spot to be in, right? These guys have a great first game, probably surprise a lot of people, right? As far as, you know, the analysts were talking about them being a sort of newer team to this type of lobby and catching people off guard. They had such a strong first game, and this is the complete opposite, right? As far as game one, their surge was as good as anybody else in the lobby. Third best, in fact. Here, ain't got a Scooby-Doo.
Alvin just got a nice little benefit though. Surprise medal, SETI. Another one of those teams where very solid first game, but now it's up to comeback. Sort of see things through here in lobby number 2, and placement points haven't even started to factor in either. They're relying exclusively on those 2 eliminations they've already gathered as get that pan out shot to really highlight some of the duos. Had a bit more success here, but Combeck's just getting squeezed right now by the lobby, trying to get some damage off. 431 below. This situation, it's just too tall attacks to handle right now. Combeck is just flailing about desperately right now, but would need more than just 1 elimination to bring things back. Instead, see where the successes are coming in for Flixie and Chap.
Oof. Yeah, they had no idea Flixie and Chap were watching them from that angle. That's a nice find for Flixie and Chap. Looking good in that first game and looking good here so far. Honestly, it looks like they want to outright win this one, able to wrap their way up on this hill in front of quite a few players as well. So good amount of priority, gives them a bit more time now to look for even more opportunities to get some limbs, and they get into an even better spot here now. Great rotations coming through.
Just smart the way that they were able to avoid. I believe it was either Gonzo or Ghost at the very peak of that hill, and it's Ghost and Ping who were still in priority height control. But this right here, the lineups, Ping and Ghost, just fully preventing so many other duos from actually encroaching towards that bottom of the hill face, and it's exactly even more impressive. Chap and Flixie were able to just skate by all of it. But Ping and Ghost, they're not done just yet. Throw the surge out the window. That's the last thing that they're worrying about, especially knowing that it's about to turn off here. But for Savage, he is praying that at least one other player will go down before he has to expend practically all of his heals. Singular shield pot left over, already having to burn out 1 medkit out of the 3 he was holding on to. And no player falling just yet means this next rotation he opts for, it could be his last if he's not careful. He might not even have a choice. Just got to get a move on. Gotta try and find some damage. That sole player just refusing to budge, and at this rate, finally, Savage catches a little bit of a break here, Levin, but he had to use practically all of his healing resources.
Yeah, not quite the 12 elim game I think we were predicting them to try and go for. But I mean, it's not over until Savage is completely out of it. The 1 build does not fill me with confidence though, especially being here on low ground. Zone will bounce back, and so he's got to get through quite a bit of a mess here. I think he might just try and look to shock straight through there. I mean, that would be a risk in itself. He'll go for it either way. Ducking, diving, dropping Taco. He's right back where he started, almost at the backside. This is not where Savage wants to be right now.
Whether intentional or not, the one silver lining there is that Savage does finally get the opportunity. Afrozi has been knocked. Thought he had a chance to heal, but just like that, Savage immediately punished the moment he tries to make it towards the body loop. Didn't really have any other options, though. Just a solid attempt, trying to make something out of nothing here. Way up above, though. Nebs Nathan starting to try see whether or not they can scale upwards, but High Ground just immediately shutting that one down. Ping and Ghost, they've dropped from their perch, decided to get a little bit more involved in these middle layers, and that has given some big woes now for the Brits. But for Ping and Ghost, front side, control, Flixie still deep inside of the storm. So what had initially looked to be such a promising rotation early on is now just working against them. But Flixie here, just like that, had a moment where it almost seemed like that was going to turn in his favor. Fortunately, just doesn't seem to be the case here. Decent amount of solos, though, still hovering.
Yeah, and Ping and Ghost aren't one of those. And so now, with the double chug play in the back to just stagger and allow this chaos to ensue, they really are set up now to make waves in this one. Fishy, he's looking to just fight his way through the chaos. And we know just how good he is at that. They will find one. And Fuzzy now has to pick up the pieces. Hutty will fall, and so the score is even. And he'll find Fishy in the back as well. Fuzzy is popping off, but he needs to find a way up this hill.
It's going to be tough, but at the very least, he can actually buy a little bit of time just playing his heals. Eddie Ed just cheering on his duo right now. Already had success with Pink and Haris, coaching them yesterday. And he'd manifest the same for himself here today. As Zestful and Super Eye. Very low on material counts. But when the lobby is so scuffed inside of the low ground, it might not even matter. Ghost as a solo now. Trying to see what more he can bring forth. A little bit of a missed shot there onto Wyver, but still playing through solidly. Backside of zone. Will start to make his way forward after utilizing a little bit of the Chug Jug to heal here. Wyver just so incredibly low. No mats. Just fully exposed, and Zest won't waste any time with that.
Yeah, Zestful and Super Eye, since taking height, have not really struggled until now. Zestful completely knocked into the storm, and Super Eye now cowering below with just 0 builds. And so it looks like the low ground teams really hold the power here. Zestful will drop down, Super Eye will follow, he'll get one, and he'll actually clutch up! Oh my goodness! When it looked lost, with no materials, it was the shotgun that got the job done, Taco.
They just did a great job. After they were able to secure the high ground, Levin, they were completely taking out each solo one after the next, and that little dominoes effect is what really seemed to give them the edge there off of those refreshes. But of course, we've got our Desk, who's also got to break it a little bit further down.
Thank you very much. Yes, Zestful and Super Eye, they had their eyes on the high ground from as early as Zone 8, and they were managing to intelligently hold on to it and make that calculated, aggressive move at the end to secure the victory royale, Takata.
Yeah, they, this is interesting. They had 0 points going into this match. They've made it to 0 Div Cup finals. They've made it to 0 FNCS finals. Until today, with that win, they have qualified to their first FNCS Grand Finals, and that is what you love to see about the Heats, Mini.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. It's nice to see. It was nice to actually see them hold on to hype for such a long time there as well, and actually play it really, really smartly. We spoke about it at the last game. Of course, iDrop and Gonzo being up on height and just not quite being able to ride it out all the way to the end. But these guys showed us an absolute masterclass here on how to actually hold on to it and play well from it as well for so long. There was a moment, I think, where one of them got overdrive grenade out. This play onto Zab was fantastic. Look at that double sort of fire down on below, and I think actually one of them got yeah, I think it was Super Eye that actually got shockwaved out there, which was not ideal for them, but Zestful has managed to find a few eliminations. Super Eye there at the end, of course, managed to come back in and get a couple, but really nice place in these guys, and welcome to the Major 2 finals, as you mentioned, their first one.
Yeah, congratulations, what you love to see, but that clutch at the end, that's what got him it, that's what deserved the placement, that golden ticket in to the FNCS Major finals here for Major 2. So I'm excited to see how they play it out. Still a lot of spots to be filled up, but looking good.
Yeah, I mean, Minimana, you were researching players from the Czech Republic Fortnite scene earlier, so maybe you could be researching these guys in time for next weekend's Grand Finals, because we're going to see them there. They've earned their place through that Victory Royale. There's 3 more Victory Royales to be claimed tonight, plus the 10 consistency points. So let's talk about who's in contention after this break.